Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about wrong questions. Meaning, if you are a photographer and you're asking this question, you have done something wrong. I mean, like seriously wrong. Now, first question that most people get is like, which company? Again, that question by default assumes there is a golden company that has sorted everything out. While I do like Sony, there are many flaws in it, which many people will like, dude, just no, just nope. So that's a serious reality that you have to understand. There is no gold company. And what does that mean? That simply means there are all camera companies have some pros and some cons. I 1 or 2 years ago I made a video series where I was like, why no to Panasonic, why no to Canon, why no to Nikon, why no to Sony. So everybody's like, dude, what the hell that means? Like, which camera to buy? Again, every camera company has some pros and cons. You have to decide what exactly do you need. Sony, Nikon, Canon, Panasonic, Fuji, all will do the job at this point in time. Meaning, if you buy any of these five camera companies, you will get a camera equipment that does what it's supposed to do. It will be good enough. Like, it will get the job done. You will not have a scenario where it's like, oh dude, it does not work. It's not 1990s anymore. Like, every technology made after 2010 is very reliable. Technology made after 2020 is really good, efficient. Even as many of them even have USB charging. So it's good enough. It will get the job done. However, where the things differ is that some excel in something and suck in something else. For example, many people are not that happy with Nikon's camera's performance in terms of autofocus. It's good, it gets the job done, but it's not like, it's like duck, duck, missed, duck. It's okay, it's okay. But here's the many people swear by Nikon system simply because their JPEG engine on this puppy is amazing. Now be mindful when I'm saying JPEG engine, no, I shoot raw. Again, that's awesome, that's up to you. Many people may not want to do that, may not have the time where they're like, dude, I showed the photo, I sent it to the client, I don't have time for anything else. In those scenarios, Nikon is really preferred. And again, depending on which current country you live in, that also changes. Like, why the heck? Again, people have different skin color. Some camera companies are really good at exposing for certain skin types. Some companies are really good at exposing certain skin types. You will have a scenario where like a lot of American people are, dude, we don't like Sony color. And many people like in India will love Sony color because it has a bit of reddish tone. We like our people to be a bit more reddish rather than orange. We prefer reddish tone, like, lali we call it in Hindi. So that's the whole point. Every camera has this strength and its weakness. It's up to you what do you need and what you are willing to give up for that. So it's up to you what suits you. It's not a perfect camera system, never was, never is, never will be. It's just that what suits you. So if you are happy with Nikon system, GG. If you are like, dude, Canon suits me fine, awesome, don't worry about anything else. If you're like, Sony is my jam, no problem. If you're like, hey dude, Fuji is more than great enough for me, enjoy it. If you're like, dude, I'm the Panasonic boy, enjoy. Don't even think about anything else. It's just that never ever ask which camera company, because while there is a decision to be had, but at the end of the day, always comes down to your choice, your preferred method of working, your previous history, everything that is you goes into making that decision. So it's not very clear cut. I may say, generally I say people to go into Sony system for newcomers, and the simple reason for that is like, if you're not filtering out exactly what you need, other camera company may not be as well suited for you. It's like, almost like foolproof. But again, many people who know what exactly they want, they're like, dude, Sony is not for me. I get it, not a bad thing, but it's like, I get it, but you have to be there. So that's why never ever ask which camera company. It's like what you want to do and which camera company is the best suited for you. Then we come to the, like, which camera company, that kind of is a tricky question. And I do get, there is some overlaps, but when it comes to lenses, that really boils my blood. It's like people are asking which to buy, which lens to buy. That's such a wrong question. It's like which which focal stop you have to buy. That's directly proportional to the feel of the picture. What kind of picture do you want? For example, I literally had this question in my comment. It's like, which lens would be better for music video? I don't know. Which type of music video do you want? Do you want a music video like a Linkin Park where the set is in focus? Then you will look for a different aperture system. There are music videos that a person is like very isolated, like the background is there, it's a set, it's there, but like you always see it in blurred out. So you may look into a telephoto lens that allows you to isolate the subject. Depending, is it romantic mode? Is it something that slowly shows everything? Like let's say some songs that show you the whole city line, so you will choose ultra wide lenses. It's up to you. It's exactly dependent on the feel that you're seeking for. So you have to know what you want, and you have to understand depth of field is yours to control. Just because you have a lens that is like f2.8 or f2 does not mean every shot has to be in that, which is a very common thing. You look into amateurs where they're like, at the moment they buy big aperture lens, every photograph is like a shallow background field. Not everything suits it. Many times, if especially for travel photography, it's really not suited for that. It's like really great for portraiture, really great for isolating some unique subjects. But most of the time, if you are somewhere like, let's say I'm here, there's Taj Mahal here, you want Taj Mahal to be in focus. You want to be like, okay, that's Taj Mahal. You just smearing white mess. That's not good enough. So you get the point. You have to control it, and you have to know which to buy. Flat out, nobody else can tell you, because every, let's say, a director who's focused on action will always prefer motion blurs. So he will choose like, what, telephoto exaggerates that. It's like it makes you feel like whoa. That's why you will never see a car chase shot from a very wide angle lens, because it will slow down everything. If you have a dash cam, you will know, like in dash cam everything looks like moving very slowly, but if you have a telephoto, same car, same speed, like you can have like 50 miles per hour or 50 kilometer per hour, it will look like wow at telephoto. So you have to choose. And if you do not know this thing, if you do not inherently understand, it's like I want to give this sort of feeling, this sort of isolation. I get it. Not everybody went to film school. Not everybody went to photography school. Yes, these are schools. Yes, people pay for their studies, and they do learn things. There's a reason why they are been there for almost a century. There is a thing to that. So what can you do? Well, you can buy something like a super zoom lens. Now again, these lenses are not the latest and greatest. However, what they have is ability as in like 24 to 240. So what does that mean? That simply means you can put this lens and focus on millimeter and just go YOLO on it. How does something looks at certain How does it, like you have 10x range on a full frame camera? That's a lot, meaning you can spend some time into understanding that aperture. Yeah, not aperture as in like at least field of view. Once you get the field of view properly, then you can just like, because you are modifying the field of view with aperture, but the field of view is always controlled by the aspect. So once you understand it, then you're like, okay, now I get it. Hey, I'm always shooting in, let's say, 150 You're like, hey, I'll buy a very high quality prime lens for very low price, 150 or you may be like, what, I'm more of a like 200 kind of guy. So you be like, okay, I'll buy 100 to 400 lens so I can cover that range. It's up to you. You can use these sort of lenses as a training tool, and then you can look at your past catalog and you're like, which photo is invoking the best feeling that I want, and you're like, tada, this lens is something that I want. That's a very good creative tool. And you're like, okay, do you want me to buy a lens? Figure out the cost of a film school. And there is a reason why people spend for money on that. Can you learn most of the things? Yes, but it will be what they will learn in 2-3 years, you will learn in 5-6 years. There is a reason why like people go to school. You can do almost everything outside it also. It's just like very tedious, and not being surrounded by the people who have like-minded, it does limit your progress, does slow down your growth. Again, time is a crucial element, so people do invest in these things. So investing in this and then like going ham on it, or you can learn a lot about I would say in 6 months. You'll be like, dude, I get it. I get it. Like, what exactly do I want? I get it. And then we come to another aspect there, like, what about two similar lenses? Here's the deal. There is no physics, no economics, no mathematics that will ever allow two lenses to be exactly the same. For example, you can look into Canon and you're like, Canon 70-200 for DSLR, Canon 70-200 for mirrorless. Are they same? Hell no. You may be like, okay, the barrel design. No. Inherently, they are different. The whole, what we call optics formula is fundamentally different. And then when you go into, let's say, Sony has like 70-200, that's awesome and all that jazz. But there is a Sony 70-200 for Sigma, from Sigma side. Would they be same? Hell no. So there are many things that you have to look into consideration. And depending on what you desire, you have to fine tune it. For example, weight. Can you carry the weight? If you're young, you're like bold, you're powerful, you're like, I'm going to carry this baby. You're like, awesome, GG. But you're like, hey, I'm reaching an age where my body is like, bro, take care of me or I will hurt you in retirement. So you're like, okay, I'll carry a lens. Even if it's twice as expensive, I'll buy a lens kit that is as light as possible. That's awesome. Then you have cost. Let's say you are stuck in an environment, and let's say for some reason you cannot just move to big city, or you may not want to move to big city. Like, for a fact that the weddings that I get here is not hyper rich people, and they're not going to give you the boatload of money. So you're like, in those sort of scenario, cost becomes a parameter, important thing. It's like, I get it. This lens is not the latest here, but it gets the job done, and it's not gonna cause me to sell my kidney. So another aspect, size. Do you travel a lot? How important is packing efficiency for you? Is it important or not important? Speed. How much burst shooting do you want to do? Do you really need a camera system that has amazingly fast autofocus lens? Because there's the algorithm can be super fast. Like even Fuji has very good algorithms, but their old lens designs were not designed that fast. So inherently it does not work as well. Then you come to quality aspect, and it's not cheap. You have to just accept it. Lens that are ground perfectly precisely are gonna cost more money than a lens that has ground just to be like good enough. A lens that has like proper coating, like vacuum spotter coating, those are expensive, like idiotically expensive. So there is a cost attached to it. So that's why, which lens is the worst kind of question that you can ask. That simply means you have never sat down and thought about it, or you just don't know what kind of works for it. Like there is a reason why people shoot a macro at 90 but does not mean only 90 works for it. So some people have used 200 That's the whole thing. And this comes to, this is like flat out, bro, you're doing something wrong. What settings? That just, nope. That's just like, that's the biggest nope you can go there. It's like, because setting is custom to each shot. You need proof of that. Here's the deal: take whatever camera you have, set it into auto mode, and shoot a whole day, meaning in morning, in late morning, afternoon, late afternoon, evening, and night. And you will compare the basically settings of the camera side. Basically, don't change the heck, have a prime lens. Don't change anything in the lens. Just change the let the auto take care of everything else. You will find everything is different. The exposure triangle is changing to adapt to the system. That's why each shot is very different. Even though you are looking at a picture, you're like, hey dude, I want this sort of picture of a cricketer or a footballer or whatever have you. I want field to be this bright, character to be. Do you know what was the lumens level there? Because here's the, it could be like lumens was very high there, so that person got the luxury of shrinking down the aperture, so it has that really good field of view. Again, you may not have that. You may be stuck in a cloudy scenario, but you still have to make sure the exposure goes up. So either you have to pump up the ISO, and again, if you carried forward their other someone's data, you're like, dude, he got the same amazing result in the same camera body with the same ISO, but I am getting garbage. Again, lighting condition changed. So this is one thing you have to understand. There is art is a very integrated part of photography. We are not doing satellite photography. We are not doing observations of a celestial body. So it's not going for accuracy. You are not being paid for making scientifically accurate photographs. There's a different field there. They use electron microscope for that. But what you are getting paid for is giving the mood for it. Meaning photographer is selecting the mood. For example, motion blur. It's something that we want to minimize. Do we? That depends on your mood. Like, do you want to show emotion of regret, or show emotions of certain loss, or even joy? Like, if done correctly, it can give that feeling to it. Like, but just utilizing motion blur, it's one of those things that you have to understand. Mood comes from manipulating this thing. You are not going for scientific accuracy, was like scientifically proven. It's like, dude, what does the carry my emotions? For example, cricket is a very popular sports, and everybody is like, every amateur is like, I'm gonna get that perfect shot, bat, ball, and all that. Just yes, dude, that's good, that's awesome. But everybody else is also doing it. Now you will notice the pro photographers, they will also try to take their shots, but they will always look into other aspects. Like, is something interesting happening? And there is a very amazing scene where it's like Sachin Tendulkar is just sitting there, and like Pakistani team is like celebrating the win. It's like he's gonna come there. It's like you get that feeling. Just the whole scene is becoming Instagram reel, just that one photograph, because it has that emotion. Like, Tendulkar is coming for you, bro. It's like, that's a different kind of feel, that's a different kind of mood. Nobody was focusing on, everybody's like, oh, this ballers are celebrating and all that. Team is like, no, somebody's like, there's a composition here, we can have that. That's the whole point. That's why you're getting paid for. And understand the exposure triangle, then you will manipulate it for the mood. That's the whole point. You are paid for the mood of the picture. Tweak the setting until you get what you want. Do not ever try to be like, I get the start rails, and like, again, those are very technical things. So you do understand settings do translate, because again, earth does rotate, so there is a fixed aspect to that. But again, many times people are like, dude, at my location light pollution is so much, I cannot crank up ISO. That does make sense. In some scenarios, like, dude, we have light filter, so we can do some things with it. That's up to you. So you have to tweak it until you get what exactly you want. And you can never repeat it. Do not make the mistake of like, okay, he did it exactly this way, I'm going to repeat it. It never works. Not even for a water drop photography, that also does not work. It never ever repeats. And you have to understand, every environment is different. And that's the whole reason why camera company gives you settings. If every settings was just like, oh, this setting is the perfect setting, why else there is other settings? And you may be like, technically this setting reduces the quality. Does not matter. Does it make it more pleasant to look at? Because be mindful, it's half science, half art. You're like, dude, it just makes it a bit softer, but everybody looks at it. People like eyes not searing it. Many times you will notice that the worst example I could think of is Jupiter Ascending. The movie is too goddamn sharp, and whenever they have VFX element, it's too goddamn sharp. It's just too noisy. It's like, it looks garbage. So you have to understand it. Like, you are paid for the mood. You have to create it, and exposure triangle just becomes a tool that you fine tune it. You have to understand that every environment is different. Like what shutter speed will work, what movie profile will work. It's up to you. For example, I'm using a lot of tube lights, LED tube lights. So it had a very pinkish cast for some reason. So I had to tweak the custom white balance. So it is removing that. Again, you may not have to do that, or you may have to do that. That's up to you. Settings defined by the local environment. Then we come to the saddest part of it, and that's a common poor people kind of thing. And it's like I get it, because I'm also poor and I'm just starting out, so I do understand. I was stuck in that point, but you have to accept it, and that will help you grow quickly. Is that you cannot get pro level equipments for cheap, flat or not. Just no. There is a reason why cinema grade equipment is cinema grade equipment. There is a reason why broadcast grade equipments are broadcast grade equipment. There is a reason for that. Like, you may not like it, you may not agree with it, but it's there, it's here, it's a real. So you have to understand. And things that are cheap for a reason. For example, you may be like, hey dude, this Canon camera is super cheap, super amazing, I'm gonna buy it. And then you realize, wait a minute, it does not have center pin for flash, meaning you have to buy Canon flash now. Yeah, Canon actually did that. So let that sink in. Cheap cameras are cheap for a reason. Meaning, many times you may be like, dude, I can buy a Sony A6100 and get almost everything. Yeah, on paper. But the moment you use it, you're like, I get it. You will understand there is a reason why small amount of lithium cost less than a large amount of lithium. A large amount of lithium allows you to make large batteries. Large battery allows you to more running time. If you buy a small one, you're like, these are little things. There is a reason why cheap things are cheap for a reason, and you really do not want to caught in it where it's like, oh, that's why it was cheap. You do not want to be there. Like, for example, this has mini HDMI output that breaks a lot, like a lot. Like, the money you will save on the camera, you will lose just on the cables. But if you buy a big one, it has full size HDMI, which are far stronger, far more robust, and cables are far cheaper. You see, there is always a reason why something is, and same goes for broadcast industry. Why do they use SDI cable outputs? Is the cable is cheap. So they are expending money on the camera, but they know for a fact that cable run for, let's say, 10 meters or 30 meters or 40 meters or even 100 meters start to cost up so much that is like, dude, there's no point saving money on the camera. So you have to understand it. And there is a vicious aspect of it from a company's point of view. There are many hidden corner cuts that you may not think about. You may like, what else? But you're like, wait a minute, it does not have this, it does not do that, it cannot do this. It's like, you will be surprised. And again, unless you are like going R&D into it and you're like studying every aspect of it, especially the whole manual, you will not find it. So you have to understand it. And one cruel aspect of it is that photography is expensive field, and it's becoming more expensive simply because the photography field is shrinking because of mobile photography. So meaning there are a lot fewer people buying into DSLR systems, like dedicated camera system. The number goes down. Companies have to increase price just so they can maintain the profit. So accept it. That's a real aspect here, and that's why lenses are so goddamn expensive. There are very few lenses that are made. So it is what it is, and people are paying for a reason. Think of it this way: if you can just do everything, or like, oh, I can do everything in my Micro Four Third, why the heck you rarely see any Micro Four Third in any sports arena, any Olympic events? There is a reason for that, and you really do not want to learn that the hard way. Why? There is a reason. Like, I flat out do not recommend APS-C if you are doing it professionally. Simple reason is that there is a economics at the play, not physics, not engineering, economics. Economics is very simple, dude. If full frame is something that has been carried forward for, let's say, 150 years, the lens designs would be far more mature for full frame than it will ever be for Micro Four Third. And then we're like, Micro Four Third does not look as sharp or as like, wow, because I specified it's half art, half science. So even though you can technically make a Micro Four Third lens that are amazing, it may not have that feel that Nikon learned after the long R&D. Is like, dude, you just want that bit of chromatic aberration, bit of that makes it very reddish system. You may find why the heck Tamron has like blue tint into it. It's like the subtle things, very subtle things. You can't even technically quantify it, but they are there, and there is a reason for that. So flat out, I always say, and like many people hate me, it's like, dude, Fuji is amazing. I cannot tell you how many people have in my comments is like, yeah, I jumped from Canon to Fuji and then instantly I jumped from Fuji to full frame Sony, and now I understand. Like, the moment you get full frame lenses, the fact the ecosystem, the business model is there, the fact there are many company making more models, there are far more competition breeds innovation breeds much more competitive prices. Outcome is mind-bogglingly fast, and they're like, I get it now. I get it why every large city in this planet will have multiple Canon showrooms, multiple Sony showrooms, rarely one or two Fuji showrooms. You will understand that. So There is a reason why people are paying for it. There is a reason Micro Four Third failed. There is a reason why Olympus went bankrupt, and there is a reason why Panasonic actually had to abandon the Micro Four Third and be like, you know what, let's just make it full frame. But again, they were so low on money, they could not do into like, phase shift calculations for autofocus, so they were stuck with contrast detect. That also did not took off. So you have to understand there is a reason why things are expensive, and you have to understand how much do you need and how much you are willing to pay for it. For example, you're like, I want cinema grade 4K raw. Awesome. Blackmagic will give you very cheaply, even cheaper than A7 Mark IV. Like, then why doesn't everyone? Because the file sizes are stupid, meaning you need to have a server in order to store it. Without a server, good luck. It's gonna consume gigabytes. There is no tomorrow. It's like, yeah, 128 GB card. You think you're the hot stuff? Yeah, 5 minutes done. Khatam, sir. The end. So you have to understand that you are saving money in one equipment, but you are losing it in another. And that's why other camera companies does not give you raw. They know for a fact that, dude, raw is something that if you can truly afford it, as in like you can afford the servers that are required to handle it, camera that costs proper amount of money for like true raw, you're like, dude, that's nothing. That's chump change. So that's the whole point. Cheap options are always cheap for a reason. Do not delude yourself. Like, again, buy cheap equipment, learn from it, start from it, but do understand why there is a, like, don't try to be petty. It's like, again, your skill set may allow you to push past it, but here's the deal, that's the same thing applies. If your car is, let's say, 400 horsepower and you're driving awesome, if I give you 4000 horsepower car, you're gonna drive even more awesome. That's why professionals always invest in their gear. It reduces their wasted time. It keeps their uptime high. That's why servers are made from such a unobtainium components. That's the whole point of it. Cheap things are cheap for a reason. Understand it. You have to pay for it. And yes, it's expensive. Yes, I know it's painful. Ask me. It's like still haven't upgraded this camera that is like 5 years old at this point in time. So this was my presentation on wrong questions. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.